Hello, everybody. Welcome to a huge grand final edition of KFC SuperCoach TV. I think I can see Dan there tearing up a little bit. A bit emotional being here for the last time for the AFL season, at least. We'll have some KFC SuperCoach BBL to talk about pretty soon, but we'll get to that later. We've got some footy on this weekend, the last round, of course, of the home and away season, and that means there's KFC SuperCoach Grand Finals happening around the country, and also we'll find out who wins the 50 grand cash and the amazing Holy Grail of KFC SuperCoach. It's in the Herald Sign office. We got it out of stories this week, and it's looking pretty schmick. Check out Tim Mitchell's Twitter account if you want to see what it looks like. He's been posting selfies with it. But great to have these great KFC SuperCoach experts with us for the last time this season. Chuck all your questions for the grand final into the comments. I mean, the thing that's thinking just coming on here, thinking, what are we going to talk about today? It's actually struck me that this is the first week in, how long, that we don't have any suspensions, injuries. There's like nothing to worry about. So, Dan, welcoming you to the show. So does that just go to show that we were right to burn all our trades early? We didn't need to hang on to any.
Yeah, well, I think I'm going to drop that reference again, as they say in Gattaca.
2 minutes, 2:05 today.
But yeah, it seems like it's right because I've actually been left with, I'm languishing with one additional trade. I've got an extra M9, M7, F7, M9. And it just shows you that these people that have gone so aggressive and won the bulk points at the start of the campaign have really paid off. Like I looked at the other day at Chili Money, who is Moreira's Magic, and he's about 1,000 points ahead. And I said, how the hell does someone achieve that sort of gap between my team and his? And really it comes down to picking the likes of Crisp over Dawson and losing 50 points a week for that. But I think those were very adventurous and pushed really hard have been rewarded now because we've seen some really quite boring team news come every Thursday. And I think that's probably a good outcome for people like Jay Peterman, unlucky for Abs Magic and players like that. But yeah, I think in future, I'm going to play this game a little bit more aggressive. Like I was very aggressive this year, but to have one trade, which is kind of not really that important for me this week, I'll probably move someone like Brayshaw out for Smokey Dawson or something like that. But just shows you that those play aggressive always yield higher ranking outcomes. So for me, aggression next year is pushing it from third gear to fourth gear is the next step for me, I think.
We have just got a comment here, and we'll get to this in a second. Someone's got Brad Crouch, who got suspended this week. So I know a few people actually, I think the Crazy Frogs brought in Brad Crouch halfway through the year as well. So he's in a few teams. So that's one that people might have to cover. But Dan Batten, you had a trade last week, but I think you burnt it. Do you feel like you made the right move, or are you regretting that now?
I definitely didn't make the right move. Well, it could still pan out okay this week. I traded out Brayshaw a week early thinking that he had 2 tags. Obviously, Matt Murphy's not talking about me there because if he was following my advice, he'd be going pretty awful. But yeah, so I had the option to go either Zach Merritt to Clayton Oliver, which was the right call in the end in hindsight. Obviously, hindsight is 2020, but I went Brayshaw to Darcy Parish and put him captain and lost about probably 50 points in all with the captaincy as well. So, but at the same time, he still could. He's likely to get tagged this week. Freo have said they expect him to be tagged. So, and it's usually a pretty tougher tag at the Giants. So we'll see how that does pan out. But yeah, sort of in a similar position to Begala towards the back end of the year. I did have a few more trades because I didn't have English at the time when he went down, and then often quite a few people went to Luke Jackson. I didn't have that issue either. So, but with those trades, I've almost made my team worse, I think, in getting guys like English back in and burning 2 trades on Jared Witts and that sort of thing. So, but at the same time, I would have loved to trade an extra trade during the buys, just saving one of my boosts. So I was probably a little too aggressive with my boost, I think, early. But yeah, I had some trades to burn later in the year and didn't know how to use them. So yeah, but at the same time, I think obviously, as Begala said, going aggressive is the best way to go. And it's the proof's been in the pudding for the guys at the top end.
I mean, even a few weeks ago, my sort of thinking when I used my last 2 trades to get Tom Stewart was, well, on the one hand, that Stewart was going to score all these points. Well, that part didn't quite work. But on the other hand, that I thought I could survive. I only had to get through another, say, 3 rounds, hopefully without a major injury or a suspension. And I thought I was cooked last week when Pratchett Cripps was out, but then it turned out he got through on appeal and he played, and so that part of it might actually turn out to be all right. But yeah, it'd be nice if Stewart could get a big score against the Eagles this week. Now, Phantom, welcome aboard. The big matchup this week, of course, that we need to promote is you versus Dan Batten in the main Office League Grand Final. So Corey here is barracking for an upset, which that means he obviously thinks Dan's the underdog. Is that accurate?
Oh, that is more than fair, and everyone's barracking against the Phantom these days. But I did see Tim Mitchell with the SuperCoach Holy Grail during the week, and probably only time he's going to get his hands on some SuperCoach silverware, especially at the moment. Speaking of taggers too, I think he was the first case of SuperCoach to ever have one of his players tagged in a final. So if you didn't hear, I did wipe the floor with Tim Mitchell, our good friend. I should stress that. And on to Don Button this week, who I'll probably take care with ease again, I think.
Have you got any trades left?
No, I don't. So I used, after last week, I was set on Rowan Marshall. The Cripps to Marshall moved so much that even when Cripps stayed in, I ended up trading Tim English for Rowan Marshall. When Stephen Martin came into the side, Luke Beveridge said it was going to be 50-50% ruck split. Expecting a big score from Marshall on the Friday night. Still scored a right 113, I think it was in the end. Not as big as I was hoping for. Still outscored English, who was struggling big time. Less than 30, I think, at half time. Dan Magala messaged me as well. I got pretty excited. I was at the footy on Saturday afternoon and then walked out Adelaide Oval and English had responded. So it wasn't too bad in. I still gained out of it. And thankfully haven't needed it. As you mentioned, no real big popular names have gone down.
Yep. So, it'd be interesting to see what the Dogs do. Obviously, we're saying no issues before the teams come out, so anything could happen tonight. And there's already a few players that we know have been sort of sent to pasture for to get some surgery and those kind of things, but none that are going to affect too many KFC SuperCoach teams. But we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that Steph Martin, that was a one-game wonder, and he's dropped again. And English against the Hawks actually sounds like a pretty good matchup. But a lot will depend on whether Steph Martin plays. And then, so who's Marshall's got the Swan, so he should probably go all right as well. So. That's the last game of the round, so be interesting. You've probably got a few players in that game, do you, Phantom, with Callum Mills? Although I think, Dan, you cancelled that unique out, didn't you? So how many players have you got different?
I'll have to check on that, Al. But I think the main pod I've got is is Rory Laird, who probably going to chuck the C on, I reckon, in the showdown. Had a down week last week, but I'm expecting a bounce back game from him. And the other one is our man, the Slug Life, who Tim Mitchell wanted me to raise this on the podcast. I didn't, but I'll bring it up on the SuperCoach TV. I actually said at quarter time that Hugh Dixon, who is also in my team, I said he's going to outscore Darcy because he kicked a goal late in that first quarter. I think from that point onwards, Dixon scored about 10 and Darcy scored 150. So got that a little bit wrong, but it was the reverse mods that I needed for my team. But hoping Sean Darcy can go big again, and fingers crossed he's lucky against Kieran Briggs, because that could be another big one.
We've got he's got obviously Sean Darcy. I've got Riley O'Brien. I've got Rowan Marshall to his Team English, Sam Walsh to his Zach Merritt, Patrick Cripps to his Darcy Parish, Jordan Dawson to his Tom Stewart, and my man Tom Green to his Christian Petrarca. And then Harry Himmelberg to his Jaden Short. So some good matchups there.
Yeah. Jaden Short one's where I'm worried about.
I'll be pretty happy if you put the C on Roy Laird. I think Dan Batten could be have some attention on Saturday night, I reckon.
Oh, we got the inside scoop, have you? Has Hipster been briefing you?
That's all I'll say. I'll let Dan Bagala in on the secret a little bit later.
Wow.
So, Dan, you're obviously a Tigers man, but you'd be hoping that so you got Parish and Merritt. You don't want any kind of attention on those guys on Saturday night. They can send Ben Rutten out in style.
That's right. And I mean, I think the thing with Parish is he can have 45 touches and they generally lose anyway. So I'm hoping for that result. 45 touches, 110 meters gained, just dinky little handballs to Merritt all day long. Like that'd be the best result. And Tigers get up by, pretty comfortably, I reckon.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting weekend. I know, Jay, we talked about the leader. He's a big Carlton man. So Sunday, I imagine, even though he's got a pretty handy lead in KFC SuperCoach overall, it's going to be a pretty stressful Sunday for him, the last day of the KFC SuperCoach season and home and away season, and hoping the Blues can get into the finals at the same time. But quickly, we had
JP on the Lair Thursday morning. That we up shortly after this, another late week edition. His opponent, the number 2 ranked KFC SuperCoach, I think his 3 unique players are all on Friday and Saturday. So he should have a good indication going in on Sunday if he needs to make a sort of a Hail Mary play to catch up if the other players had a big week, or he could cruise into Sunday. So interesting weekend for him, but listen out for that chat a little bit later.
Yep. Dan McGallagher, I mentioned this, James, earlier. He does have to probably make a trade this weekend. I think he's saying he's got no trade, so he can't do anything about it. But he's got your mate Witherden, Dan. Any sign of life from him? Yeah, I mean, I don't know what advice we can give. If he doesn't have any trades, you just have to pray, don't you? Because I don't think Hewitt's coming back, and Gresham and Crouch are out as well.
Yeah, it's pretty stiff. I don't know. I guess you've just got to use all your loopholes. You've got to use your bench. Like, I guess what people need to understand is that we don't need to pick players based on averages anymore. We need to just pick players based on a one-game performance. And there might be, for this James fella down there, I mean, he's been decimated by injuries like most of us, but there could be a Mitch Owens or anyone in those earlier games from the Friday, Saturday games comes out and scores an 80 that might rescue you. So I think that's the sort of thing people need to start thinking about. I won a premiership last year in one of my main leagues with Kieran Briggs, scoring, I think, 86 in the grand final on the Friday night for Carlton GWS. So there are some things you'll never forget. And that guy gets a premiership medallion, Kieran Briggs. And I'll never forget his performance against Tom De Koning, where he just monstered him just because of his size and wanted to show the coach that he was still a required player. But in this instance here, like, you've been decimated by injury, you're going to have to look to your bench and you're going to have to ask the boys to really step up and become premiership players if that's what they want to do. But seeing 300th overall, you've done well with Hewitt gone for the last month. Witherden, I don't know where he's gone. And then Gresham's been gone for a while as well. So this bloke clearly watches Gattaca because he did not say anything to the sim back.
Speaking of benches, I mean, I've got Stu here talking about talk Goldie might be out, so that would not be great for my team, although his scoring's been pretty rubbish the last 3 or 4 weeks. Got me a couple of hundreds when I first got him, but he's more 50s, 60s, 70s the last few rounds. Last week, I think I semi-joked in our chat that he might have passed away out on the field because he hadn't actually scored for about a quarter and a half. Thought old age might have finally got to him. But if he's not playing this week, I'll have to play someone off the bench, which will good old Mel Rosas. Or was there talk Joe Cully might be back this week? He might come in for a last-round cameo. I am in a couple of grand finals out there. But Dan Batten, who would you like if you got a trade and you can replace Goldie? I don't think he's worth heaps anymore, but would you try and get in the slug for a big last round score against the Giants? So, I mean, Butters has been scoring pretty well as well.
Yeah, he has. So a few times in a row for Zach Butters in the showdown as well. I think he got injured in the last showdown, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Or maybe it was just a poor game. Actually, no, I think it was a poor game for him, but he may have played it out. 58 points there for him. But yeah, obviously they'll be wanting to see off Robbie Gray and his final game, the showdown specialist in Phantom's part of the world. But at the same time, I reckon if it's Kieran Briggs in the ruck up against Darcy, I think you can't really pass that option up. I think he could go big again against the Giants. If Flynn is back or Bruce, who knows what's happening with Bruce. I think he was out with injury, but whether they put him on ice, sort of, who knows. But yeah, I reckon if they bring in either Bruce or Flynn, then you might just go with Butters and hope for a big score at Adelaide Oval on Saturday night.
Yes, Dan mentioned in the chat here, 20 hit-outs to advantage for Darcy last week. So if you can do anything like that on the weekend. And I think, or Phantom, you might have a better memory. Didn't Butters cop the knock early in that game, didn't he, in the showdown last time?
Yeah, it's a friendly fire, I think. Big collision with Sam Powell-Pepper.
Yeah, Pepper, yeah.
Smokey Dawson took all the points as well after siren goal. So any chance to talk about that again?
Willem Drew's gone straight to him.
Isn't he injured?
Could be on your.
Is
Willem Drew?
Mm.
No, he tagged. They should be right. Tag Zach Merritt.
He played on Merritt last week.
I thought he did an ankle late in that game.
I hope not.
Yeah, I think he's okay. I haven't heard anything more this week, but I think he could start Rory Laird, surely.
You want him to go to the right guy. You don't want him to go to Laird. Yeah, exactly. Phantom, question for you here. So this is Dan sort of touched on this, that and we all have as well, that really all you're looking for this week is if you've got a trade, you can bring someone in who could just pull out one big score. That's all you need. We mentioned Darcy as someone who's got a good matchup this weekend. Is there anyone else? Like Hawkins down at the Cattery against the Eagles might be a good option. Any others that jump out this weekend?
Yeah, well, Jeremy Cameron could have been the other one as well, chasing the Coleman if he was playing down there at the Cattery. Tom Hawkins, I don't mind, but then they've got some pretty good defenders, West Coast as well. Tom Barras on fire down there, and Tex Walker couldn't get a kick. I know a different team against the Eagles over there a couple of weeks ago, so you could potentially avoid that. A lot of popular names have some big scores. Took Miller's gone massive. You don't have him. Could you bring him in against North? Or then St Kilda and Sydney, Rowan Marshall has a good history against Sydney. We know his history just without Ryder, full stop. So Rowan Marshall's still a pretty big point of difference. Ollie Wines in the showdown is an interesting one. JP, the leader again, traded Ollie Wines in probably 6 or 7 weeks ago. I think he's the 5th ranked SuperCoach player for a 3-round average as well. So probably one definitely want to stand up on the big stage. You would have thought for him, Travis Boak as well. Could you go? Robbie Gay, the full Hail Mary play like a Josh Kennedy style from a couple of weeks ago. Tom Lynch, your man, he could be the real, if you're behind in the first 4 games of the round, Dons and Tigers, MCG Saturday night. Oh, not happy with that one, the Mutts at the Patton household. But Tom Lynch is actually, obviously, after that 170-point performance last week, he's the number 1 player for 3-round average in KFC SuperCoach. Could dish up an 80, or if the Tigers break the Dons early, then he could be in for an absolute bag. So he could be the one, the Hail Mary play if you do have a trade and you start the grand final matchup behind early.
Yes, apologies for that. Lenny, not a fan of that trade. No, I don't mind that. I mean, it's just a matter of sort of the match might not have a huge bearing on what happens in the final. So whether Richmond sort of takes the foot off the pedal, or whether Essendon lifts for Michael Hurley's farewell game, and there's a few
Rutten's final game.
Yeah, probably so. But who knows? I mean, the way Essendon played last week, and the way Tom Lynch was clunking him, I reckon he could be in for a big score. And I think I looked up the other day; he's had 3 scores over 160 this year. So he's a definite option. I mean, the other one is we always look for midfielders against North, and Tuke Miller we've already mentioned. If you don't have him, he's the obvious one. But is there anyone else at Gold Coast? I mean, Noah Anderson's been in some pretty good form in the run home. But Dan Batten, the other side of that coin is if you had a trade, is there anyone you'd want to get rid of, a popular player potentially this weekend with so many taggers floating around?
Yeah, it's a good question. Bagala mentioned before Brayshaw. I reckon he's the one who could get some serious attention. Lockie Neal copped a tag after quarter time against the D's last time. Who knows if they'll send James Harms to him again to nullify his influence. Obviously, it had a Windhager shut him down really well last weekend. But aside from that, I don't know. You can almost get in your head a little bit too much, expecting tags, predicting tags. And then they don't come. And for example, Neil might end up going 130 against the D's tonight. So on Friday night. So it's I'd say if you're looking for someone, you've probably got to be pretty sure that that the person you're trading in has a really good matchup as well, and that you're definitely going to bank some points. Example, like a perfect one, if you had the cash, would be going Brayshaw to Tuke Miller if you don't own him. Yeah,
did you mention Sinclair? He's the other one, I think, this weekend.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed him. Yeah, he's the other big one too. Obviously, Ryan Clark shutting down Dacos last weekend and went to Sinclair in the last time he played, and that was his lowest score of the season there with 78. And I did mention John Dawson before, but the Phantom sounds like he has some good mail there that it might be Rory Laird who's getting shut down instead. So
I've mailed Ken, actually. I've sent Ken the mail. Tag Rory Laird.
Oh, very good. But so I think that like a Sinclair to whether it's Stewart looking very cheap at the moment, 537K, or Sisley if you don't have him up against the Bulldogs. So there's plenty of options in defence. So it's probably Sinclair and Brayshaw are the two where you could sort of gain an edge there in a crucial grand final.
Yeah, well, we mentioned Dacos last week. Dan Bagala, Michael here's looking to trade Dacos out. Obviously, he was a bit quieter last weekend with the tag, but I'm not sure if the Blues will do something similar. How do you think? Would you get rid of him this week? And would these guys that Mike was mentioning be better option. I do. Doherty's looked pretty good again the last couple of weeks after a quiet couple of
Played
rounds.
in the midfield
Yep.
against the D's.
He was playing Chera's role, I suspect, and I think it probably won't happen this week if he gets up from that abductor. If we get Hewitt back as well, that could mean he'll go back to his rightful home and a halfback flank where he's been fantastic. But I probably think Doc in that example. Like, I feel like Doc, when the game's on the line, big moments, 100,000 people at the MCG, he's the type of player you want in your side. And I suspect that Bo McCreary, the little defensive forward, will most likely go to Sard, or he could even go to Doherty. We're not sure. But I don't know. Like, I don't mind Angus Brayshaw. Like, I actually think he's so underrated as a player. Like, he can play any position on the ground. He's so good with disposal. He's so composed when he's got it. He never makes mistakes. And he's been playing a lot of time in the midfield with Clary and Petrarca the last 3 to 4 weeks. He's playing that role. What happens with Harms coming back? Does Harms go in the guts and probably tag Neil? That's probably an option we have to consider as well for tomorrow night. But I probably like Doc or Brayshaw. But I've got an asterisk against Ronald Barassi over there, because he's probably on my watch list for next year. Like, I actually think he's on my watch list because his intercepting is up there with some of the best in the comp. He's had a few monster 130-plus scores over the last 6 weeks, and I actually thought about him a few times as just a monster pod that didn't have the cojones to make the move. But I like Doc number 1, Brayshaw 2, and then probably a Hail Mary on Tom Barras on the third one there. But look, they're all good options. I think Dacos has been a great servant to get to here. But again, like, his colours got lowered pretty substantially last week. Kicked a brilliant goal late, or a pretty easy goal, mechanical goal. But I like Doherty in a huge encounter to go big there. I suspect he will go big.
Just quickly on Barras, 5 scores. So his last 5 weeks: 149, 132, 109, 104, 126. He's racked up over 10 marks in 4 of those 5 games, and obviously a lot of them intercepts as well. And West Coast do love to play that chip mark style of game. It's not the worst option, especially he'll probably be up against Hawkins though this week, so he may be playing a little bit more defensive, but there's no doubt there'll be plenty of footy down there, so all the more opportunity to take some intercept marks and get some +8s for your side.
Yeah, he's one we'll be looking at next year. I mean, Christian Without Notice, fans, I'm looking forward to listening to the Lair. We certainly spent a bit of time on our podcast earlier this week thinking about, what do we get right and wrong this year, and players we might be putting on the watch list for next year. Any little previews you can give us after your pretty successful season?
Well, in terms of players, I think I've been vocal about this in the second half of the year, but Errol Goulden from the Swans is an absolute certainty to be in my team, regardless of what sort of position he will be. But I think my friends at Champion Data tell me the splits will make him a mid-forward again in KFC SuperCoach in 2023. So he'll be one, the young gun I'll be banking on, hopefully a bit more success than a Tom Green at times. But he could be the other one that potentially he's bounced back again. This is only his third year.
No.
You look back through his scoring. Look at how many SuperCoach tons. A third-year player, if we didn't talk him up so much, if I didn't talk him up so much, just purely as a third-year player, the numbers he produces are pretty impressive. So a lot higher than many other third-year players have put together. Even the better KFC SuperCoaches in their prime didn't even have those higher numbers at that stage of their career. I guess interesting pre-season, I think, given we now know how to use the new rules better, the trade boosts, the extra trades. Dan McGrath talked about being a bit more aggressive. And I think if you weren't aggressive, you fell behind even further, because those who went aggressive were even more aggressive with those extra trades and extra trade boosts. Selby, who Dan mentioned before when he came on the Lair as well, he spoke about how a lot more, he hadn't played SuperCoach before, but he used the trades like crazy to upgrade, and he didn't necessarily get any real big pods or anything. He just had all the better scoring players before everyone else did in the one team. So that gave him that launching pad, and that's why Dan McGrath said before, I still can't catch guys like that now because they went so aggressive early. And of course, you can have some bad luck and lose those points, but I think there's extra trades then sort of safeguard you against that as well. So I think there's a lot of strategy to talk about how we pick our starting teams, and then what we do in the first sort of 6 or 7 rounds next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Giants are going to be interesting because they'll have a new coach, and a lot of their players and the whole team obviously is really massively underperformed this year. So there's going to be some value there, but it's always buyer beware going after GWS players. But anyone you've got a sneaky eye on at this stage, Dan, Begala, or things that you learned from this year that you can take into 2023?
Yeah, it's probably the same things that the Phantoms echoed there. I feel like when people like Selby, Moreira's Magic, who are now sitting ninth in their first try at SuperCoach, it's pretty amazing, but it just shows you that you need to bank points as early as you can, and the snowball effect and the momentum starts to build. And effectively, you're never going to catch them because you'd need Armageddon to hit or COVID to hit a full team and knock them all out for you to ever catch up. So I think that in future, I won't have any qualms deploying my 3 boosts prior to the buys, probably even earlier than that, to be honest. And I do want to put a bit more time into thinking how I'm going to approach the buys, because this year in the round 13 buy, I got caught out. I felt like the tide really went out on me because I wasn't that prepared for it. I had to scramble to get Mitch Owens into my team. He gets knocked out in the first quarter against Brisbane and things like that. And I was sweating on players were getting selected. So I don't want to be in that predicament again next year. So I'll be doing a lot more thinking in the preseason as to how I want to compose my side. But then again, the AFL might release a rolling fixture, which doesn't make things too easy for the fantasy players out there. But in terms of players, I'll probably be thinking about the catalysts and the new roles. I look at the easy one to look at is the discounted players at GWS. Lockie Whitfield is going to be substantially discounted to his 600k normalised starting price. Got to look at guys like Dacos. Do I go and second year and go, is he going to do a Clary Oliver and average 115 in his second year? Well, perhaps he will, because the catalyst is he's going to go from a halfback flank to the centre square, and he's going to dominate in there as well. So lots of that stuff to think about. And then also picking the tail end of this season. I remember 3-4 years ago, everyone was on Jake Lloyd because he came home with 10 weeks straight where he had an amazing run home. So I need to identify who those players are now. And Tom Barras is one of those players that people have to really put an asterisk against, because his last 5 weeks have been amazing. In the round 23 fixture, both teams playing for nothing really. Geelong home, West Coast finish for the year. He could have 160 points. They'll play bruise-free footy so they can get to the pub without any bruises. So I think that's the way it's going to land. But they're the sort of mantras I'm going to apply. And then also the hardest thing for me, I find every year, is balancing my pursuit of rank versus my pursuit of leagues. And I feel like that's probably the hardest thing for me, because the harder you go at rank, the more you rob yourself of doing well at leagues at the business end. On the weekend, I'm playing my most important league. My opponent has floaters on every line. He's got 2 trades because he tanked the last 4 weeks building up for the final. So I'm shouting out to him. His name's Nicholas Graham-Bone. He's a physio, and he's just had a baby, actually. So maybe he does need the good news, and maybe he needs to knock me off. But it just shows you it's hard to balance that feature. And next year, I'm probably going to turf the leagues and just go pure ranking pursuit and really go Selby territory and be aggressive. That's my aim.
Yep. How far behind the Phantom, mate?
I'm about 150 points, so I think he's got me, because there's no injuries, there's nothing there. My one trade that I've got doesn't really help me, because nothing's happened at the selection table. So maybe I'm not really. Kudos to Phantom. It's great to see him up there. It's good to see two HS contributors sitting in the top 1,000. Obviously, Tim's not in there, and I know he's wanted to be there all year, but good to be alongside the Phantom, because
I'm still waiting for Tim and Dan to come 150 points, 200 points cruising past me.
Nah, it's not happening.
Tim's season went downhill ever since those words came out of his mouth.
I think I've gone downhill even more. I've gone down about 1,000 spots since that point, so I'll probably just better just keep my mouth shut, I reckon. That's
right. Well, I'm sitting here at 960 something or 962, and I'm hoping to just stay in there, because it'll be my 3rd year straight finishing in the top 1,000. I'm really happy with that. But there's a lot of learning. The most recent learning, to give you context, is that when Clary broke his hand, I should have immediately traded him to Rory Laird, because that probably cost me literally over 3-week period, 140 the first week, and then 40, 50 points thereafter for the next 3 weeks, whilst Clary started to get back to his normal output. So it's a piece of hindsight, but look, you don't need to be alive in hindsight. You just got to go forward. So next year, that's how I'm going to play, and I think it's about being very, very super aggressive, and that's why you get rewarded. But you can go down and fire and smoke if you get it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the flip side, obviously. So, Dan, you mentioned on the podcast a couple of names. I don't know if you want to chuck any out now, that especially some of those guys that Dan was talking about who are, really flying now, but because they had a different role or weren't doing so well in the first half of the year, they'll get priced for the start of next season based on their overall average. So that might be a bit of value there. And then into what you're prepared to give away on what you're looking at for a captain this weekend for the big granny.
Yeah, just to look to next year, I'm looking at my forward line at the moment. I don't think any of those guys are going to be forwards eligible next year at all, like Bont, Parker, Dunkley, or maybe Dunkley, but English, Brodie, and Darcy Cameron all probably going to lose it. So, yeah, I think that the one that who's come on in leaps and bounds in the back end of the year with a role change. Harry Himmelberg, he's priced at a 91 average at the moment. Probably going to keep his dual position status as a depth forward as well. I think he will be a really popular option next year if he is playing in defence during the preseason. Begala did mention a couple of those guys. GWS, I'm still not sure I can trust GWS other than maybe a Himmelberg type. I reckon the trade period's going to be really interesting as well. How Supercoach relevant does Hopper become at the Giant at Geelong if he goes there, for instance, or maybe Tim Taranto at the Pies if he's playing a full midfield role. So and the rucks as well. Who knows what's going to happen there? Hopefully Marshall gets to ruck on his own next year, and then if Grundy joins Gawn at the Pies, I think we might be a little bit stuffed in the rucks. So it's going to be really interesting over the off season to see how that impacts Supercoach. But in terms of captains for this week, I think I said before, probably for me, not having Clayton Oliver, probably got to go VC Took against North, and then not so sure about Laird now after the mail that fans has been sending Ken Hinkley. I'm not sure Laird's the guy you do tag though, so I might end up doing it anyway. But the other backup option, I went with the captain with him last week and he didn't deliver. But Darcy Parish, surely he has great form against the Pies, who never tag 128 and 166 in his last two games against the Tigers. So he'll be wanting to see off Rutten because he seems to be the reason why they lose every week because he was out of the side and they started winning. So yeah, it's probably going to be Parish or Laird for me, I reckon, on the captaincy.
Phantom, are you going to go with Clary as the pod, or do you try and match Dan to really snuff out any hope that he might have?
I can't say. Yeah, I'm just going to keep it wrapped. Smoke and mirrors a bit more now. Clayton Oliver VC Friday night. Definitely for me, not just because Dan doesn't have him. I think that's most cases Supercoaches probably have to look at that. Otherwise, the Took VC that Dan suggested is a pretty good move. Big scoring history against North. And then just the way North have given up some points as well. I don't mind if you need a bit of a different captain option potentially too. One of the Blues on Sunday afternoon if the Dogs do win. In the earlier game against the Hawks, then obviously that makes the must-win for the Blues against the Pies. So what does Patrick Cripps do when Carlton have to win to make the finals? What does Sam Walsh do when Carlton have to win to make the finals? So I could have a look at one of those guys as a bit of a left field captain option in terms of popularity of selection. And maybe if Hawthorn do win, the Blues make the finals anyway, then maybe I just go to Callum Mills in the final game of the year.
Or Cripps gets rested. He's laid out.
I've got cover.
Yeah. Tom Green cover. He's 50.
Tom Green VC maybe.
Well, that'd be huge. Got it out with a bang. And I'll go C, and it'd be fitting if Parish was the one to bring you down.
Do it.
Will you be at the G on Sunday, Dan Begala?
No, I'll be watching it at home. I think it'll be. I think it's a sellout crowd, which is pretty cool. But I think I'm going similar to Phantom. I'm just going to lock in Claz on Friday night. Like, he was amazing when they played that game at the G. And he got sort of stifled in the second half, but he was amazing up to halftime. I think he went 144 and then took Miller. I mean, it's one of those games, again, you know what happens in round 23. It's happened in SuperCoach year on year, round 23. Blokes just get 40 touches, 10 above their average. It's just they just don't defend. They don't do any of the defensive stuff. They just enjoy themselves. They all go to the pub afterwards, celebrate in a respectful manner. No Mad Mondays these days. But I do like that shout from the Phantom with Cripper. Like, I feel like he's been in ripping nick the last month. I mean, he's been our shining light since Dan traded him out. I'd love to see if that Hawthorn game does go in favour of the Dogs. Oh, geez, I'd love to see Cripper back to his round 1 to 5, ticking 3 and having 40, 18 contested in the first half. Like, that's what I want to see. But I think the decision will be made. I think it'll be Clayton Oliver into Took Miller. Ideally, I'd love to have a look at Took first, but doesn't leave me with much other than Cripper and maybe Sean Darcy the Slug. I'm interested where you got that nickname from, because I call him Hodor as the character from Game of Thrones.
You've got a few different nicknames around the SuperCoach space.
But the Slug, where did that come from?
I think that was maybe in mine. Just for no particular reason.
Put you on the spot. Sorry, mate.
No,
way
just
he
the I
moves.
guess the
The way he
he
moves.
moves around the ground.
It doesn't
We don't
move.
need to move too fast. If you're having 20 hit-outs to advantage per game, I think that's all you got to do.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, 100%. I don't mind the Crips call too, because we look at, doing your opposition research. And if people want to check out the SuperCoach Plus article this week, we've got all the stats in there about who gives up the most points to opposition, rucks and defenders, and et cetera, et cetera. And Collingwood is consistently all year giving up big scores to opposition midfielders. So they don't have a tagger, and, sort of the way they play is they really try and, run that chaos style out of the back line. So they give up a lot of clearances and possessions in the middle of the ground. So, yeah, I reckon Crips could go big. Now, before we sign off, we do have to do one last zinger of the week, and it's fitting, I think, that it goes to one of our long-time viewers here in Matthew. Now, just let me find all the bits and pieces I need to do here. What do you think of this, Phantom? Matthew's suggestion?
Well, I'll definitely beat DB, so I'll have to think about it, Matthew. I don't think so. Well, I probably need a bigger screen. I don't think my head will fit on the screen. You've been listening to me lately. We mentioned if I got to 11K followers on Twitter before the round one the previous year, didn't get there. Maybe I should set a mark for next preseason, and if I can get there, maybe we'll think about doing something. But not next week, but I will beat DB. So, and thanks, Matthew, for your engagement the whole year.
Yeah, no, it's been great. So any final thoughts, Dan Bagali, off to the parade after this?
Yeah, it's the cavalry. We get the cars down Collins Street. We get in we take the tops off, and we roll down Collins Street, and obviously the city.
In a boat. You'll be on the boat in the
Yeah.
Well, it's only at 20% occupancy, so only the busiest of cities these days, and it's quite windy out there. So might have to wear a cap or something. But yeah, we've got the cavalcade today. We'll have a big dinner tonight for the lads, get them up for the game. We might even have a special guest come along. Not sure, maybe a comedian, someone to lighten the mood for the players. And then there's strictly no phone use and no partners, etc. It's just focus on the game here on in.
Jolly watching Gattaca on Friday night before the
movie. Very strict here, but that's how you get the premierships done. So exciting times for the lads.
Yeah, and I think Dan hit the nail on the head there. Special screening of Gattaca just to fire them up.
Yeah. The special guest could be Uma Thurman.
Okay. On that note, thank you, gents, for jumping on again today. Thanks, everybody, for watching. You stuck with us on today's show for the whole year. It's been absolutely fantastic. It's been a great year of KFC SuperCoach. We've had boosts and trades and everything to talk about. So hope everybody's enjoyed it and had a really successful year. Hopefully finish it off with one big weekend this weekend. Then we'll be back before you know it. There's KFC SuperCoach BBL, and we're already talking about who we're going to pick in SuperCoach AFL for next year. So there'll be plenty of that sort of talk, especially, as Dan said, around the trades. And it's going to be very interesting where players end up. And obviously the draft after that as well. We've got guys here get right into that as well. So stick with us for all of that. But good luck this weekend, everybody, in your KFC SuperCoach Grand Final. And we'll talk to you soon.